Are you thinking about starting a window cleaning business? Or maybe you already started and you're trying to figure out how to get to six figures or at least a livable income as fast as possible. And if you think that six figures is unachievable, you need to change your thinking because it's completely possible and you can do it. So I just want to encourage you to go ahead, step out, take a chance on yourself so that you can win this game of life. Let's go ahead and level up together. Guys, my name is Ben. I own Blue Ladder. It's actually the third window cleaning business that I've started. I've been in 3 different states and I've found out that every market is not the same. They're actually very different, and what works in one place might not work in another. So keep every little bit of information with a grain of salt and make sure that you learn to apply things, guess and check as you have to go, and fix as you move forward. Now in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what it takes to get to 6 figures. And believe it or not, you're probably closer to that goal than you think. It took me less than 2 years to hit that mark, and I'm sure that you could do the same. I'm not a rocket science, I'm not a genius, I just followed some pretty simple principles. I dug my feet into the ground, kept my chin up, and kept pushing through with grit. Whatever comes your way, if you've got the mental fortitude to keep moving forward, then you will succeed. They say that over 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, but often that's simply just because they gave up. So that doesn't have to be you. And maybe you will find a better opportunity along the way. But regardless, this is an adventure that will help you to grow personally, spiritually, and financially. There's a few logistical things to take care of right off the bat. I'm sure a lot of you already have some tools. If you don't, I'll go ahead and drop a link for a basic starter toolkit. But you don't need much more than a mop and a squeegee, maybe a bucket, some steel wool. I've got a whole other video about the tools that you could use in order to get started. And there's a range of what you might have for a budget. If you need extra help, go ahead and comment below and I'm more than happy to help you. Other than that, you might need some type of EIN, that's an employee identification number. That's something you get from the IRS website. Just do a quick Google search and you'll be able to get. That allows you to pay the government the taxes that they're owed based on your separate business number, and that also allows you to open up a bank account with that. If you're going to use a different name other than your own, you can either just stay as a sole proprietor and get a fictitious name, that's usually the cheapest, or you can level up a little bit and file for an LLC, that's limited liability company. That's a great option that gives you a little bit of distinction between your business and yourself, so that if something goes wrong with the business, you personally are still protected. You need basic general liability insurance. If you're going to go commercial, you're going to need a little bit more than that with commercial vehicle insurance and workers' comp potentially. And then depending where you live, you might need some type of local tax license. And that would be a general business license. If you have a sales tax on home services, then you're likely going to need to get whatever local thing taken care of, so that way you can pay the local taxes and the government's going to love you for it. Start looking for the things that you're doing day to day that are kind of redundant and begin to plan ahead on what types of systems that you can implement in your business, so that when you're training somebody to do what you're doing, you have the right wherewithal or the mindset to be able to explain it to them in a very clear and thorough manner. When you have these things all framed in your mind properly, then you'll be able to invest yourself into the most important things, marketing and sales. Now let's get back to the objective, 6 figures of income. Let's break down the overall roadmap into steps that we can take in order to reach our destination. Now, like we all probably know by now, life is non-linear. There's a lot of things that happen. There's seasons to everything, ebbs and flows. And business is no different. Your busy time is going to be the spring and the fall, and your slow time is going to be the winter and the peak summer. Now, unless you live in Arizona, most of the world, for the most part, lands along these seasonal lines. I have 2 curves. The bottom would be what you expect in your first year. You're going to start out slow, pick up some momentum into the spring, and then by the time June hits, you're going to start slowing down. And in July, things really dip. I found that every year around 4th of July, people are ready to calm down. They go on vacations and they get to go with their family. They don't want to spend time at home and they're busy, so they're not going to be calling you as often. You can, however, take some of that peak and fill in the future valley. Oftentimes, you'll have customers who might think that the price is a little too steep, but maybe you can't give them a discount because you're in your peak season. You can offer them to give them 10, 20% off if they're willing to book in the summer when you can anticipate your season will slow down. And then inevitably, when the kids go back to school and the seasons are beginning to change and people need to get ready for the holidays, they're going to start spending more money getting the house ready for the friends and family that are going to come and visit. So it's another great opportunity where you're going to start climbing up another hill and getting busy again. But don't get too excited, because when winter hits, it will dip. Every year before Christmas hits, you see on social media people asking constantly, what do I do to get more work? And it is much harder at that point. So it's important that, again, in these peak seasons, that you put as much money aside as you can to reinvest in the future and get a little extra stash so that when things get slow, you don't have to give up. If we broke our steps down into every month, it's healthy to have an idea of how much work we can actually do in a given month. Typically, I find with a newer window cleaner, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to the process of cleaning windows, and you'll naturally start out slower. As you get more experience and as you get more practice, you'll definitely be able to get faster and more efficient as time goes on. With that said, a healthy goal would be between $10,000 and $12,000 of work to be performed in a given month. That would put you at max capacity. As a seasoned window cleaner with upgraded tools, you can definitely do better than that, anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000 in a given month. Now, just because we have the capacity to do that much work doesn't mean we're going to have it. We're going to have to spend a lot more time, boots on the ground, doing marketing, whether it's going door to door, doing social media posts, networking with people, friends and family, or business groups near you. There's always going to be some work that you have to put in. All that aside, let's figure out what it takes to get started. Now, the number one priority, the bloodline for your business, is going to be getting customers. That's a combination of marketing and sales. That can be its own episode on its own. So let's go a little bit deeper into just what you need right now. Start a Google business page. Get a free Yelp profile. Get set up on Nextdoor. Figure out where your customers are living and find out how to get in front of them. Whether it's review platforms like Yelp and Google Business or social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, do everything in your power that you can for free. And certainly, if you can, build a website. Even though we have 6 figures as our goal, and we know how much that ebbs and flows, that's still not clear enough to understand where we're going. We need to break that down into the average dollar amount that you're going to get from each customer. And when you haven't cleaned windows before, you have no idea what that is, do you? So let's just start with minimums. $150 should be the minimum that your minimum would be. You can even push that higher, as low as $200. And so you got to figure out what you're comfortable with. I personally have had my minimums up to this point at $169. Now I'm speaking right now in January of 2025, and I'm about to raise that a little bit higher. Maybe to 175, maybe to 189, somewhere in that range. So you do what you're comfortable with. Make sure your mind's in the right place when you're considering this, because every job that you get to takes time to get there, time to set up, and money to get the lead. That minimum of $150 up to $200 would be for outside only. That would mean a condo with less than a dozen windows, $150. That means a larger home where you would still be just doing the outside might be more than that minimum. I've had large homes that are upwards of 7,000 square feet where it was around $600-700 just to do the outside windows. So that's just your starting point, your trip minimum, kind of a benchmark or the floor of where you're going to be starting from. And so you know that your average ticket throughout the year ought to be higher than that. If you're going inside, I have another minimum of $249. That's to do inside and outside windows on a small condo. Let's say they only have 6 or less than 12 windows. Still going to be $249 for me to go inside, clean their inside glass, and then go outside and do the same. I'll include the tracks and the screens and everything else for that price, but that's still my minimum if I'm going inside. These two things help you kind of start to build a foundation so that you have in your mind what your minimum prices will be and how much you're going to be able to get from each customer. So we know it's going to be more than that. If we just take the average of those two things, you come out to $200. And $200 isn't a bad idea for you to use in your calculations, because hopefully you're going to get more than that. But when you calculate things that you're forecasting for, you kind of want to have an optimistic spirit, but you also want to be realistic in your approach. So if you project forward based on your lowest expectations, chances are you're going to be much happier in the end. There's a saying I've heard, the key to happiness, and there's a saying that I've heard, the key to satisfaction is lower expectations. So we don't want to set our expectations too low, but if we go this route, you're going to be happier. When we know our average ticket per customer, or at least we can project that, we can divide that into our target. So in this case, going for 6 figures divided by 200, we get 500 customers. So now we know to turn $200 into $100,000, we need 500 customers with that average in mind. And ideally, this average is going to be much higher in the end, especially if you add on some services. I have a whole other video about that. I'll try to link it, but just think about this. If you're able to add a $200 gutter cleaning job just to half of your customers, that's going to increase this entire price up to $300, which means you're going to need a third less customers than you would otherwise need. So add-on services will multiply this number, making it easier to hit this number. At any rate, let's take that goal in mind, take that 500 customers and split it up into a more approachable monthly goal. Now remember, 500 customers divided by 12 months would be ineffective. We have our goal of $12,000 per month divided by $200 is going to be 60 customers. We max out at 60 customers that we can service in a month, roughly speaking, obviously. That means if you had 30 days, you would get 2 customers a day at your minimum prices and you'd be able to hit your goal. There's a couple different approaches we can take to figure out exactly how many customers we need, whether it's per week or per month or per year. We can take that objective of 500 customers and we can turn that into a weekly goal, a monthly goal, a quarterly goal, depending on where you live, depending on the weather that you have and the seasonality that's around you. You're going to take January and February where you can't work very much, especially if you're in the Midwest or the Northeast. You add to that the week of Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, you're going to have very little work. In addition to that, you're going to have slow times and you're going to have bad weather. So you're going to take the 52 weeks of the year and you're going to drop it down by at least 2 months when you're starting out. That would be if you're in a good weather area, someplace like San Diego or Florida. Now, assuming you're in a bad area, a place like the Northeast or the Midwest, you're going to want that number to be even lower. So I would go with the assumption that you're going to work anywhere from 40 to 50 weeks in the year. And so do a little deep thought for yourself, how many weeks you'll have available. In this case, I'm going to go with 40 weeks just to play it safe. If you get extra work beyond that, that's just going to be icing on the cake. So again, we're hoping to hit 500 customers in a year. That's expecting only an income of $200 per customer. If we break that into 40 weeks so that we can plan ahead for weeks that we can't work, then that comes out to a goal of 12 and a half customers per week. And so now we can reverse engineer our marketing based on our objective from week to week. Now we know a little better of where we need to go. 12 and a half customers per week. You can shoot a little higher than that or a little bit lower than that. Maybe you know that you're going to be making more money per house, and so you can go a little bit lower than that. I'm going to go ahead and round it down to 12. And if you wanted to run a little lower, especially for the first year, if you went to 10, that would be okay. Realize that in your peak seasons, that should be very achievable. But in the slow seasons, you might have a harder time. I'm going to work with the number 12 just so we have something nice and easy to kind of calculate with. If I want to get 12 customers, I can find many different ways like that, and I'll try to point you in the right direction so that you can kind of create a strategy that works for you in your situation. You're going to have some issues early on of finding things that do or don't work. You might invest in a campaign that kind of flops, and there's a lot of nuance that goes into why it does or doesn't flop. It could be that you have a bad design. It could be that you're poor at sales. It could also be that it's just a bad season or the wrong customer base. Remember, not all neighborhoods are the same, and not all people have the same income level or willingness to invest in a service like window cleaning. You can do social media campaigns, whether it's paid ads on Facebook or going into groups to consider you as a service provider. Or you can do Google ads. There's something called Google LSA where you actually create a Google profile and sponsor ads in using that. You can use bandit signs or yard signs. There's a few different strategies for that. Or you can do, I have here referrals, social media, there's flyers, postcards, door hangers. They all work the same, they're all nuanced, but they have the same effect in the end. And then there's the good old door-to-door sales, which I personally hate as an introvert, and I have not done that since I started my latest window cleaning business, and I hope to hold out and not have to do that again. My go-to has been the print media. The reason why: Facebook is unpredictable, Google is unpredictable. You only get customers when people are specifically searching for you, and while it can be a very advantageous and scalable way to market, it can be a little bit more risky early on. Your tried and true bet is going to be, whether it's flyers or door hangers or postcards, you're going to get the most bang for your buck, in my opinion, using that methodology. Door-to-door can also work. Like I said, I don't like it, but you can still break it down fairly easily. Generally, door-to-door, it takes about 20 doors that you knock on to get one job sold. The nice thing is that you can target higher income neighborhoods so that each door that you knock on is going to be worth $300 to $500 minimum. Or you can go to the really easy neighborhoods if you're just starting out and make sure there's nothing that's going to be too challenging. So you have flexibility with where you target if you're door knocking. The same would apply to the flyers and door hangers as well. If you get busy, then you're going to want to consider doing something like postcards, like every door direct mail. And there's a lot that goes into that, so do your research properly. Social media and referrals are a great add-on, and I suggest doing everything you can, especially when it comes to free. I know with Jobber, they actually have a program for referrals now in their marketing campaign tool, where you can actually incentivize customers to share and get the word out, where they actually can get either a discount by percentage or like a gift card amount added to their account, so that the next time they get their service, you can deduct that from their total. So they have a lot of incentive to go tell their friends. For instance, if you give them 10% for every friend or neighbor that they refer 10 people and they get a free service. And you're okay with that because that means you're doing a lot more work, 10x work, just from that one person who's referring you. And that's going to snowball in the long term. So it's something to definitely consider. But that's something that you can't quite control early on. You can hope for that, and you can leverage that, but it's not going to give you instant results most often, unless you're a really good marketer by trade or naturally. So I'm going to cross that out because it's just so unpredictable. Social media, you have all varying levels of experience and taste when it comes to that. Some people go into groups and they spam, and then they get blocked, and then they lose privileges on Facebook. I don't want that to be you, so be careful and make sure that you use good social etiquette. Let's focus on door hangers or flyers, because you can do that while you go door to door. I'm going to put D2D for door to door, and then we'll put door hangers for any type of postcard or print media that you'd be hand delivering yourself. Again, I said 20 doors knocked for one customer. For door hangers, I found that there is a wide variety of response rates. And that can have to do with the call to action that you have. You may not have a very good offer. You really need to have a good offer on those to make sure that they feel like they are given a special opportunity with the piece of literature in front of them, so they actually are incentivized to give you a call or to look online and book. And so you could also not be in the right neighborhood, and so you get low response rate. But on average, you can expect 0.5% response rate. That means for every 100 flyers, you get half of a call. Or for every 200 flyers, you get one call. Now, if you're a master salesman already, you could pretty much take that to the bank. Sometimes you can get better than that. If you hit the same doors 2 weeks later or even less than a week later, you're going to get a better response rate. So it's better to hit 1,000 doors 4 times than it is to hit 4,000 doors 1 time. The more often you hit the same neighborhood, the more often they see your truck, the more often they're presented with any information that has to do with your business, the better off you'll be and the better your response rate will go. Also, the more money you can charge and still keep the close rate higher. Let's just assume you get one call for every 200 customers. Your close rate can be anywhere from 20% up to, let's say, 90%, even though that's still not very likely. You want to be in the middle between 50 to 80%. And that's a pretty good range. I'm higher than most of the competition in my area, and I don't go in person to do quotes, which these things both lower your close rate. If you find your close rate's really low, you may need to consider that you're just a bad salesman. But if you feel like you're doing an adequate job, which you probably are because you're probably a nice person and you're probably kind to them and you're probably considerate and you probably care about them. And so if you're just a nice person and not pushy, your close rate should be pretty decent. So with that in mind, you could hope for about 70%. So I'm going to go 70% close rate. So if we know it takes 2,000 customers to get 10 calls, then we can also figure out 70% times 10 equals 7. So 2,000 flyers will get us 7 customers. So now what we got to do is figure out how much work we got to do to get 1 customer. And if we say 2,000 divided by 7, make sure you do your math, folks, 28.5. So now we know we need 285 flyers to get 1 actual customer booked. So we figured out we can knock on 20 doors to get 1 customer, or we can do 285 door hangers to get 1 customer. One of the hacks is to do door to door, but bring door hangers with you. That will either up this number or it will make that number more achievable and make this number a little bit lower. But again, we're going to predict things with worst case scenario. Now remember, we need to get 12 customers in a week, and so in order to get that number, we can reverse calculate. You either have to knock on 240 doors, or what's 12 times 285? So now we know we either need 3,420 flyers that we hand out in 1 week, or 240 doors knocked in 1 week. If you're able to do this faithfully, you'll definitely hit your mark. Sometimes you're going to be a little better. Sometimes you're going to be a little slower. That's a little bit challenging. I think you can usually hand out, depending on the neighborhood, anywhere from, say, 50 to 100 flyers in an hour. So now we can break that down into a daily routine. So assuming we're going to work 5 days of the week, that means you've got to do 48 doors knock in a day, or 608.4. Let's just round it up, 609 flyers in a day. Both of these would take a lot of work. That's one person going full-time devoted to this event. That's why year 1 hitting 6 figures can be a little bit challenging unless you have some money, some serious money, to really accelerate this. But within 2 years, you should be able to do this if you're bootstrapping things. But if you would imagine, year 1 is going to be a lot more challenging because you don't have any customers and you don't have a reputation yet. Year 2, you get the momentum of word of mouth referrals, you get online reputation helping you out, and you get all of your business base from the previous year going into the second year. Now, it's not just an easy double, although it can feel like that sometimes. What happens is inevitably you're going to have some customers who move, maybe they pass away, maybe they don't need the service again because they just don't feel like they want it right now, or maybe they get upset with you and go with somebody else when they do need it. So you're going to have atrophy year after year, losing some of your existing customer base. I found that typically I can expect to keep about 80% of the revenue from the previous customers that I would then build off of. So year 1, maybe I got $50,000. Then year 2, I would expect to carry over about $40,000 just from the momentum from last year. And then everything else that I get on top of that is gravy. Now, the key is, as you're growing, you can move away from doing the door hangers and get into something that's a little more automated, like every door direct mail, where it costs a lot more money, but you're able to do it effectively while you're not doing the passing out of the flyers. The post office does it for you, so you can focus on doing your work. Then you can have a lever that you pull it, and when you need customers, you just simply drop off the flyers at the post office or automate a social media post and do automated ads. Whatever you can figure out as you're growing, you make that more streamlined into a predictive lever that you can pull to get paid. Okay, so I did something pretty simple on Excel. You could easily do it yourself. I simply had a chart where I put the monthly revenue for each year and grouped them up on the graph. So starting in 2020, going into the next 2025 projections. So on the top, you'll see I have multiple lines. Each color represents a different year. And then in the chart, I've written them down. Each column is a separate year broken down by month. We'll skip ahead to the first full year. And obviously in the winter time, no matter where you're at, it's going to be slow. With that said, starting in January of 21, I had 1,800. Then February, we had a major ice storm. I wasn't doing a whole lot of marketing at this point. I did a little bit of Google ads, but not much else. So then in March, I was able to get a little bit, but people were still reeling from that previous storm. April is when I started to put the postcards out. I had just moved to a new location, didn't have any friends or family, was trying to get established in the area and just kind of settle my family in. I had some money from selling my previous business, so I wasn't maybe as much in a rush to get work as I should have been. I kind of regret that looking back. I started to build a little bit of a hole of debt. So stay out of debt if you can. Keep working on another job until you have enough income to get you over the threshold. All that said, let's dig in a little bit more. May and June and July, I kept getting more and more income. I was mostly doing postcards. And then August, I kind of peaked out, slowed down. September, October, steady revenue averaging between, $6,000 to $8,000 month over month. Then November, I did Christmas lights, and that gives me a nice bump. That was also, I had some Christmas light customers from the previous year. That's mostly all I did the last year. Then December, a little bit of gutter cleaning, and then carrying that into the new year, I did some screen repair and gutter cleaning, a little bit of windows on the side. So January and February, around $3,000 average. March started building up, got under $7,000 for the first month, then under $12,000 for April, up to $8,000 for May, just under $13,000 for June. Then July we had just under $6,000, same for August. Remember, summertime gets slower because people are going back to school, they're on vacation, and they don't really want to have to deal with people when they're out of town. So it picks up again when kids are back in school in September. Then I went on vacation I went out of state, and so I didn't have as much time to work, so my revenue went down because of that. But then came back for Christmas lights, kind of try to catch up. I also had a surgery for my daughter, I think that October. So things really got kind of put in a tailspin, and I was not proactive in my marketing leading into that. So November, $25,000 in revenue, and December, $10,000. So all that said and done, that second year, and if you took the month over month, like starting in October of 20 and finishing in September of 21, and then doing the same thing for the next year, I still, after the second group of 12 months, still broke 6 figures in revenue. The next year following, so 3 years into the business, I actually, if I didn't take all the deductions that I did, like for things that are kind of like arguable, like uniform shoes that are my Nikes that I use for at home too, or paying for the truck payment and insurance on it, paying for the phone bill and the internet and basic utilities and space in the house that you get a deduction for because you're using a section for a home office. All those things come out of it. If it wasn't for that, if I was a W-2 employee, I would have made 6 figures, but I wanted to maximize the deductions, so I think I got taxed for about $88,000. So you could easily do that. I was not even as aggressive as I should have been or could have been. I did not do any door-to-door whatsoever. I didn't do a lot of door hangers. I mostly did direct mail and would focus on doing the work while I had a call center set up to accept the phone calls. So there you have it. That's my kind of skeleton month over month, something that's very achievable that you could definitely do if you just dig in, show a little grit, and do whatever it takes to get some customers going. Now, the key takeaways. Number 1, be consistent. Always be marketing, always be talking to people, always be sharing the word of the services that you'll provide. Number 2, don't lose heart. Keep pushing forward. You're going to have some difficult situations. In the end, it simply comes down to showing up. Show up on time, show up consistently, show up at your best. Whether that has to do with being consistent with your marketing, being consistent with your customers, being consistent with yourself. If you are consistent with that and you show up day after day, you are going to succeed. Find those marketing levers that you can count on that will also be consistent so that when you need 10 customers, 20 customers, you know exactly what marketing tactic you're going to use and how much of it you need in order to hit your objective. You carry that consistency into your customer service, people will appreciate you, they're gonna like you, they're going to reciprocate that by telling their friends and their family about you because they know they can trust you and others will too. There's so many people who are inconsistent, don't show up, aren't on time, don't do their best, don't communicate, and because of that, it's really easy to win this game. Okay, you made it to the end of the video. I truly appreciate you watching this far. It means the world to me. It keeps me motivated to keep posting more videos like this, so if you ever have any questions or comments, please drop them below. And also, if you ever want to support my channel even more, use any of my affiliate links to purchase window cleaning or pressure washing supplies, or use my link for Jobber to sign up if you don't already have a CRM. I'll see you guys in the next video, and thanks again for watching.